Welcome to The Best of Our Knowledge, a program focused on learning, education, and research. On today's show, we'll speak with Darren Reisberg, who was recently inaugurated as Hartwick College's 11th president. We'll learn about what it takes to lead a private college and the challenges facing higher education in a post-pandemic world. It's all next on The Best of Our Knowledge. You're listening to The Best of Our Knowledge. I'm your host, Lucas Willard. Hartwick College in upstate New York has a new president. The small liberal arts college in Oneonta formally inaugurated its 11th college president, Darren Reisberg, in October. Reisberg comes to New York from Chicago, where he most recently served as executive vice president and chief strategy officer at the Joyce Foundation. The private nonprofit is focused on racial equity and economic mobility. Reisberg also served as Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and Deputy Provost at the University of Chicago, and for 3 years served as the governor-appointed chair of the Illinois State Board of Education. I spoke with Reisberg about how he arrived at Hartwick to begin his first college presidency, the challenges that small private colleges face, and the skills needed to be a college president.
I think that it's really important to be a good listener. When you're a college president, you have a significant number of stakeholders at a institution of higher education, and you have a system in most places of what we call shared governance, which is that you have a board of trustees, certainly as my boss who hired me, but the faculty end up having a role in a number of the decisions that shape the direction of the college. And we also then have our staff who are not faculty. We have our students, and all of them have voices that are valuable and need to be respected. And if you are coming into an institution of higher education as a leader, and you have set in your mind all of the things that you want to do and you're not ready to listen, I think that's a recipe for failure. So I think, listening is very important, but also being decisive. So I think, you have a lot that's going on, and if you are not decisive, you have you run the real risk of just stagnating. So, those two I would say attributes of being a good listener and being decisive could at times seem contradictory, but I think that it's really important that you have a strong work ethic. You're going to be working nonstop as a president of a small liberal arts college, and you need to be ensuring that you're putting in the processes to be gathering the necessary voices and information, but ultimately moving forward with decisions, and then to the extent that something is not working, being very ready to adjust as necessary to fix it. So those are some of, I think, the general attributes that I'm bringing with me to this role. I think also trying to be ambitious for this institution. We are a small liberal arts college that doesn't have the name recognition that some of the other small liberal arts colleges in New York and in the Northeast generally have, and we have to be thinking creatively about ways to be getting word about the assets of Hartwick out to different communities in order to ensure that our enrollment numbers in particular continue to increase. And a small liberal arts college like Hartwick that doesn't have the endowment that a University of Chicago or even an Amherst or a Williams have, we're going to be a tuition-driven institution. So we need to ensure that either we're bringing in more and more students, or that we're thinking of other revenue streams like new master's programs and the like. But the more we stray from the core of who we are as really a small liberal arts college focused on undergraduates, the more we sort of lose ourselves. So all of that is what I'm thinking about every day, Lucas. And I hope that answers your question.
Is the small liberal arts college in some ways a dying breed? And are there a certain set of challenges that are unique to that form of college or university?
Well, I don't think it's a dying, I certainly don't think it's a dying breed. I think that I didn't know as a student in the public schools in New Jersey of what small liberal arts colleges were, and Duke was a wonderful place to go to school, but I think if I had the opportunity again to go to college and choose my college, I would be interested in a small liberal arts college where you have this unique opportunity to be able to develop relationships with faculty that are life-changing, that you don't get at a larger, I don't see at a larger research institution, or they're definitely less frequent that you would be able to develop those relationships. And so I think that those who come to small liberal arts colleges recognize that, and it does impact them for the rest of their lives. And I see that in terms of the alumni who are coming back to Hartwick for Alumni Weekend, and the way in which they talk about the faculty that they have here, and the students who are here right now, the way they talk about their faculty as well. I think that there are the headwinds or the challenges, that the ambient challenges that we're facing right now, that mean that there may be that there may not be enough students, college age going students right now, to feed the sheer number of small liberal arts colleges that are here, which makes the process for trying to attract students all the more competitive. And some of that just is the demographic cliff of lowering birth rates, especially in the Northeast and the Midwest, and the introduction now of for-profit online colleges that are providing additional competition, and the fact that that's now post-COVID, or as a result of COVID, more acceptable to students and families, to some, that you really feel like, okay, that's a modality for learning that they can appreciate, and that it's a good thing. I think for a number of others, though, COVID created a loss of community, and a small liberal arts college is, I think, community at its finest, a real family, that you have for not just the 4 years, but beyond those 4 years. And so my hope is that the positives that I've mentioned of what a small liberal arts college can be in the post-COVID world of where we are right now, outweigh the challenges. But it still is going to be a constant fight to try to be getting our name out there and convincing students to be coming to our small liberal arts college versus the others. And you talked about price, and that is I think a constant question that colleges like ours need to be asking ourselves, because our sticker price of what tuition isn't what our students pay. We have the large majority of our students receiving scholarships that essentially mean their tuition is discounted by over 60%. And so the obvious question is, well, why don't we just reduce then the sticker price, and maybe that's a more reasonable picture about what the cost is of coming to a place like this. And I think it's a fair question, but for many people, the reduction of tuition of the sticker price ends up being interpreted as a reduction in quality of the learning experience, and the experience more generally at the institution. So it's something that, as a new president, I have to think about. Is that a direction in which we should go, which is reducing the sticker price? But do you run the risk then that it ultimately undercuts the way in which the college's experience is perceived?
So Hartwick is right across the street from a public college, State University of New York in Oneonta. If I was a student and I took a look and I printed out the brochures from the internet, and one has a sticker price of so-and-so, and the state school might have a lower sticker price, it might be easier to decide, well, I'll go to the public university. So is that a challenge, being located right next to a state university of New York College, which also offers programs like the Excelsior Scholarship and other financial aids through the state system?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I look at the proximity of SUNY Oneonta as an asset for us because it means that the area in which we reside, Oneonta is that much more vibrant. There are more students here. Again, we're only right now a bit over 1,100 students. I think we'd like to be back, over 1,200 and in maybe even the 1,300 range. But SUNY Oneonta is a larger institution, 6,000 students. So to me, it's a great thing that SUNY Oneonta is here, and I've developed a really positive relationship with their relatively new president. We sort of are coming into our positions together. But I think you're right, Lucas, that for students who are unaware of the fact that the large majority of our students receive significant financial aid, the sticker price that they might see on the brochure could be an absolute deterrent from them ever reaching out to us to apply. And that's, I think, a struggle. And it's something that we have our admissions team constantly out there talking to guidance counselors, talking to students, prospective students and their families about on college tours, with the hope that they understand, two things. One is that we're a different type of institution than SUNY Oneonta, that we are the small liberal arts college, and here are some of the reasons why our experience may be a preferable one than going to the state school. Some of the things I had talked about earlier. And also, don't be concerned about the sticker price because this will not be the cost for you to come here. Which again gets you back to the question that I asked earlier is, well, why don't we just then change the sticker price? And, there's that question of quality again, and it's something that we have to be continuing to think about.
If Hartwick were to consider a reduction in sticker price, you're not just considering the numbers and how it looks on the brochure, but, do you believe that a reduction in that tuition cost, because it's a tuition-funded university, that would have a big impact on the quality of learning?
Well, I don't necessarily believe that the reduction in the sticker price would have an impact on the quality of learning, because it's, because of it might mean that we would be giving out less financial aid because the, gap now, the amount of financial aid that we're giving from the sticker price down to what is being charged to most students can be significant. I think if we were to lower the tuition, depending on what we lowered it to, we might be then giving out less financial aid, and so the bottom line potentially would not change much. The big question is whether or not taking that action of reducing the sticker price would actually better ensure that we are bringing more students to the Hartwick experience. And we've seen some schools, we just had a couple of schools in the area. Colby Sawyer is one, and LaSalle in the Boston area is another, and Utica had done this a couple of years ago, make the decision to reduce their sticker price, and the jury is still out as to whether or not that's made a difference in terms of them as private institutions, actually increasing their enrollment numbers. So these are really tough questions that, I, the senior leadership team here, our board, the faculty will be needing to discuss. And enrollment is, I would say, in addition to fundraising, Lucas, those are the two biggest issues that I, as a new president, need to execute on in order for my presidency here at Hartwick to be a success.
Do you think that the pandemic and the shutdowns associated with the pandemic changed the way people learn? I know that people may have a certain preference toward online schooling that may not have been seen just a few years ago. But do you think that the pandemic, in just a couple of years, actually, with a certain age group and a certain amount of people, changed the way people learn?
Well, I think there are a couple of points here. One is that I do think for those who who went to high school during the pandemic and were impacted by their schools closing and learning being remote for almost the entirety of 2 years for some, the state test scores both for English language arts and math on the whole have demonstrated a significant negative impact on learning for those students, learning loss, I think people often say. And so I think that has caused students who are then coming to college out of those experiences to be some steps behind, and that's made it, I think, a challenge for colleges to try to be bringing those students, helping those students get up to speed quickly. So that's one challenge that I think many colleges are struggling with right now, how to help recoup learning loss and to keep students here, to retain them when they're having a challenging time with the subject matter because of the learning loss that they had. That's one. Two, what we've seen is that most all of our students, even though they became more acquainted with remote learning during COVID, they prefer being able to learn in person. And I would say, for the most part, our faculty, have preferred to be able to teach in person. So I think there's, again, exposure to the fact that remote learning is possible, it's viable, and in certain circumstances it could be effective, but it's not preferred. I think the area where we're probably seeing the most change in terms of the way in which people are willing to learn and the way in which institutions are willing to teach is more for adult learners or students that have some college and no degree yet that might be wanting to return and are working and need to be able to build an education into a very complicated, busy life that we have the ability now to deliver on that type of education and meet individuals where they are in a better way than we were able to do in the past. And I think institutions like ours that have historically been more undergraduate focused are thinking about how to be expanding our offerings to try to address that desire by adult learners to have more opportunities. And so that could be, for a place like Hartwick, an additional revenue generation stream. So we, for example, built out a nursing education master's program for to train nurses to be able to teach nursing because there's a major shortage there, and that's entirely online. But we don't have any fully online programs for our undergraduates. That's just an example.
So, President Reisberg, I wanted to ask, does being a post-COVID college president, does that offer a fresh set of eyes or a new perspective that would for a college like Hartwick be an advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I have so much respect for those who led institutions like Hartwick during the pandemic, to face, that situation, I can only imagine was a tremendous challenge, and to try to ensure that we were delivering on our promise of educating our students in that environment, I know was just such a monumental task. So coming here in a, I would say, quote in quotes, post-COVID environment, is I think a luxury of being able to start at this time. In a couple of ways. One is that there was an energy and enthusiasm on campus amongst students, faculty, and staff this fall that was not evident over the course of the past 2 years, just because individuals, weren't able to engage in the same way. Faculty and students were wearing masks and weren't able to really see each other in their classes. Students weren't able to be having events inside, and everything changed dramatically starting this fall. And the amount of activity on our campus is at its height, and faculty are talking about the engagement of students in their classes. So for me to be able to come in at a time when you have that momentum, that level of energy and enthusiasm amongst all of the constituents here at the college is wonderful. And it also, because of the fact that we have been exposed to new things, like I was saying earlier, the idea that students can learn remotely and teachers can teach remotely, even if that might not be the ideal. I think it does cause faculty to be open to thinking about how we might want to do things differently. And again, that's also a luxury for me to have because, as I said, we're not going to look to change things here without engaging our faculty in sort of the world of shared governance we have. And so now that they're exposed to this, this really can be a good conversation to have. So I would say, Lucas, there are certainly advantages of coming into a college presidency at this point. Then there are also the challenges that I mentioned earlier of just some of the demographics and other issues that we as small liberal arts colleges face.
And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, President Reisberg, but I do want to ask, what you think of upstate New York, and in Oneonta, have you tried the cold cheese pizza yet?
I am a lover of pizza in any way, shape, or form, and I, of course, have tried the cold cheese pizza at Tino's, which is absolutely delicious. I've fallen in love with upstate New York, as has my husband John, and as have our 4 dogs. It's absolutely beautiful. This past weekend was my inauguration here as president, and I was able to have family and friends from all different parts of my life come to campus and spend time in Oneonta, and I was so excited to be able to show off this special place, both the campus but also the city of Oneonta and the area around us, and everybody who came from, whether it was the West Coast or whether it was Chicago, where I have a lot of friends from, or even from downstate here, downstate in New York City, just were blown away, and that made me feel very good for our whole community because everybody here is deservedly proud of this place that we call home, and we couldn't be happier.
Darren Reisberg is the newly inaugurated 11th president of Hartwick College in Oneonta, New York. You're listening to The Best of Our Knowledge. This is The Best of Our Knowledge. I'm Lucas Willard. Employers are facing a two-sided crisis. Businesses need new talent. At the same time, there is a shortage of properly trained workers to fill many of the open positions available. The Best of Our Knowledge's Jody Cowan reports on how places of higher learning in New York are working to address the labor shortage.
The national unemployment rate is about 3.7%, and the job market is tight. In order to fill positions, employers are increasingly looking for workers who they can train across sectors such as healthcare, skilled trades, and information technology. A newly opened Workforce Development Center at Hudson Valley Community College in Troy aims to help bridge the gap, bringing a satellite office of the Rensselaer County Career Center and operating in conjunction with the Capital Region Workforce Development Board, which will also be located on campus. Hudson Valley Community College trustee Tom Grant was on hand for the ribbon cutting.
What Hudson Valley is able to do, they're right at the cutting edge of technology. They work with companies and industries interested in hiring people. They'll work together in developing a curriculum that is not only beneficial for the student, but beneficial for the industry as well when the student graduates from college or completes a certification program. In fact, many Hudson Valley Community College students are already working for companies. The crucial thing is partnerships and the seamless transition from college to the workforce.
Officials say the new center is the first of its kind on a New York community college campus. Joining Grant at the opening was Brian Williams, Executive Director of the Capital Region Workforce Development Board, which is building a new office at HVCC. Williams said one of the goals of the center will be to directly connect students with industry.
Our expertise is really on that labor market. We know who the businesses are. We know the skills the businesses need, and getting that information out to individuals about where the jobs are, what the skills that are needed. Our staff and all of our career centers and all of our partners can actually help weave in that pathway really between workforce and education, knowing that those two pathways should line up.
While the surrounding capital region of New York has regained more than 8,000 jobs that were lost during the pandemic, more than 4 times that amount is needed to return to pre-pandemic levels. One of the sectors hardest hit is the public school system. Recently, the National Center of Education Statistics released a report that said 53% of the public schools surveyed started the school year understaffed, with 69% reporting having too few candidates to fill open jobs. In order to attract more education majors, the College of St. Rose, a private institution in Albany, announced its Build the Teacher Pipeline initiative, providing free on-campus housing for education students. The plan also provides up to $7,500 for people who are going back to college to study teaching, expands the number of online courses, and includes web-based learning tools. New York Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado heralded the program during an October press conference.
Education really matters, and teachers really matter. We're talking about creating possibilities. We're talking about creating opportunities. We're talking about lifting up people from all walks of life. And if education, and I believe it is the gateway to opportunity, then our teachers are the gatekeepers.
The bipartisan infrastructure law includes $800 million in workforce development funding. Recently, President Joe Biden recognized the commitments made by more than 350 organizations in 50 states and territories as part of the Infrastructure Talent Pipeline Challenge, which tasks employers with collaborating with institutions like community colleges. But the federal government is also challenging employers to develop new industry-specific training programs to those without a college degree. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo had this to say.
I think it's very important to allow people to get skills and training to do good jobs without necessarily getting a 4-year college degree. Not everyone's cut out for college. College in this country is incredibly expensive. So what we're doing is bringing employers to the table to help work with training partners to design, new ways to get people the skills they need to do good jobs.
By encouraging higher ed and industry to foster new partnerships, officials hope to not only boost local economies and fill jobs, but also help the U.S. to compete on the world stage. For the best of our knowledge, I'm Jody Cowan.
This has been The Best of Our Knowledge, a national production of WAMC Northeast Public Radio. Thanks to associate producer Jody Cowan, our executive producer is Dr. Alan Chartok. You can find us on Twitter at TBOO Knowledge. To hear past episodes, visit our flagship station's website, WAMC.org. Until next time, I'm Lucas Willard.